So the main point of this app is that it is an employee survey, and currently we have our employees, but we don't have our surveys yet. So this section, we're going to actually set up the surveys and how they're created. And then in the next section, we'll actually figure out how to send the surveys and distribute them. And then we're going to have another section for the response experience. So just know that this is going to be split into 3 videos. For this first video, let's go ahead and create the survey admin. So we're going to create a new sidebar, create a new tab, new tab in the sidebar called All Surveys. Inside, we're going to display a table of all surveys with columns for survey name, status, invited, completed, response rate, start date, end date, and a view action. We're going to also have some stat cards at the top, so add stat cards above for total surveys, active surveys, average invitations, and average responses. And then we're going to also add a create survey button. Okay, our survey tab is created, and if we go into it, we have our table with create survey and all the cards. Let's keep going by now creating our actual survey builder. So when creating a survey, give it a name and the status of draft. A draft survey can be configured once set to active. The configuration should lock and display I guess it doesn't really matter, but configuration locked banner. Probably didn't need to define that, but just in case. Add a closed survey button on active surveys. So there's still no way to configure it, but that's going to be the next prompt. This one is just when we're creating it, having a certain status and stuff. Alright, so there shouldn't be much to see from this prompt because the main thing changed is just the survey creation, but we can still build a test survey, create a draft. Now we have it here. If we view, we can configure some stuff, basic stuff. We can activate the survey, which will lock everything, and then we can close the survey, and now it's closed. I'll just delete this because we don't want to keep a random survey out. So the next part is going to be actually configuring the questions and everything and the structure of the survey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new tab in the sidebar called settings, and that's where we'll be able to configure everything once the app is complete. And create a question bank with it. The question bank should have a import CSV as well, and add question button. The questions should be categorized and have one of 3 types. And this is just the types of thought could be good. So we have scale 1 to 10. We have yes, no. And we have open text. Now back on the survey tab. Actually, we should define back in the survey configuration, because that's where inside the survey tab, configuration tab, build a survey structure, view the structure, and then we're going to add sections where the question bank, where the questions can be added, so we can have multiple questions in each section. This is a pretty standard survey tool. Question bank. And the reason why I'm not building the question bank inside the actual surveys is so that I can easily configure it later on, add questions, remove questions, so that I don't have to write the question individually within each survey. Yeah. Okay, there's our question bank. I'm assuming there's not going to be any questions in there, but what we can do is just create some data for questions. So around 40. So that should get us some questions to work with, but while the AI is adding those, let's go ahead and create another survey and see how this part has changed. So now we have a configuration and structure. Configurations remain the same. We can change it later on. Now we can add, however, a section. So as the example, environment. And then let's just do another one, leadership. Now we have our sections of the survey, and we can add a question from the question bank. Obviously, we don't have any questions yet. Let's just let it finish, and we'll have some questions. All right. Let's see if we now have some questions. Yes, we do. And they're all categorized into different types. Now if we go back to our survey structure, add questions, there they are. And now we can just click add, and they should be added right over here. Perfect. The last thing I want to do is add a preview tab where we can see how the survey will look once it's sent out. So add a preview subtab next to structure in the configure tab that shows what the survey will look like to a respondent. And we still don't have what it does look like, so this will probably just create pretty basic structure, but once we go to the next section and actually build that, we'll see a bit of a nicer preview. Looking at the preview tab, there is our survey. We have a way of answering the questions, next, and then obviously in the second section we don't have anything, and then we can submit the survey. Great.